from the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 30 of Dads From The Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I am joined by Mondo.
Hello.
And Jody.
Hello.
And our good friend from Films at First Sight. Welcome to the show, Joe.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
You know, life is meaningless and nothing matters. Other than that, we're okay.
Sorry about the Niners.
You're not sorry, but it's okay.
Not entirely.
I appreciate it, though.
I'm sorry on your behalf. So, Joe, tell us about yourself.
So I am just a film fucking nerd. I love to watch all sorts of weird new stuff and even just diving into older collections. And I have a podcast called Films at First Sight that I do with Caitlin from BGH and from previous episodes. And Jody from the show, and I have a new show coming out in possibly the next week or so.
Soon.
The thing is stitched together and essentially ready for a final press.
So let's back up for a second. Tell us about Films at First Sight. What is that podcast?
Films at First Sight is a podcast where we essentially celebrate first-time viewings of movies. We want to kind of get into the viewer's experience and how that kind of bounces back and forth, but really we're using it to encourage people to go back and watch things that maybe they missed out on in like the big zeitgeist, or they heard about last week and said they wanted to see.
Nice. And what is the?
I love the concept. And it's a lot of fun because I've been introduced to multiple movies, both from being on the show and from hearing you all talk about stuff too.
Yeah, same here. The idea is just brilliant.
I love watching a movie with someone who's never seen it before. I mean, that's why having kids, that's like
the
best thing to do with kids.
That's
like
one of my favorite things is sharing a movie I love with my kids.
Yeah, because you did an episode on Speed, and there were like a week before that I showed my 16-year-old Speed for the first time, and it was awesome.
And he said she loved it, right?
Yeah. He loved it, yeah.
Or he.
That's fine. It's fine. So what's this new podcast that you and Jody got?
New podcast is No Film Left Behind. It's a bit deeper dive as far as we're going to be covering a wider gamut of movies, multiple movies per episode. And that's going to be bridged by essential theme. We want to kind of dig out the movies that people may have just brushed off for a multitude of reasons, controversial, obscene, just hard to get through, and maybe just not really even heard of. And so we are going to kick off our new series with diving into nunsploitation.
Oh, that old chestnut?
Yeah, right?
Those are like a dime a dozen. He hasn't seen a million nunsploitation movies.
I feel like I have now.
Especially after the first recording, I went a little bit further afterwards, and it's been a lot. Let's say the missus is like, okay, let's move past this.
No more.
Is this coming out in time for Valentine's Day?
I believe so. That's actually a really damn good idea.
Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited for that. Because I've said before, I've said this about Jody, but Joe's definitely in the same boat where usually you guys are kind of if everyone else says a movie's bad, but Joe and Jody like the movie, I am like 99% sure I'm going to like the movie too. So they're kind of my measuring stick for whether I'm going to enjoy a wacky movie or not.
Does that mean I'm on the other end of the spectrum where if I like the movie, you know to stay away?
No, but I know
you love Nothing But Trouble.
Okay.
I love Nothing But Trouble. Yes.
Fuck that movie.
No. Jason, you're definitely not my. There's nothing wrong with your picks. I dig what you like to. I trust your opinion too, but I also know that Joe and Jody are on this far end of the scale. I kind of hover in where, again, we go back to loving blood-sucking freaks, and Joe turned me on to. Yeah. Oh shit. There we go.
Yeah. Joe is not a fan,
but Joe also turned me on to The Devils, which just fucking blew my mind. Like to a
If,
whole,
if there's a group of people talking about movies that they hate, I'm likely to be the one to go, yeah, it's actually pretty good. I kind of like that one. So
I mean, I'm a Book of Shadows fan too, so I know that's a
I do
bad
love
one.
that
And
movie.
Love
yeah.
that movie.
yeah, oh, man, I just love how many more people like as I meet new horror fans actually love that movie, and it just makes me feel good because I'm not wrong.
All right. For announcements this week, we just have our reminder that we are sponsored by Fright Rags, and we love that sponsorship because they put out a great product that we're really proud of. And we have a special promotion with them going on right now. So if you want to buy any of their products, make sure you use code CRYPT10, CRYPT 10 when you check out for a special discount. Moving on, tonight we'll be discussing the Tales from the Crypt episode Abra Cadaver, which premiered
Fantastic title.
Yeah, every time I have to like stop, it sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
My wife said there has to be a metal band named that, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I haven't. There's not. I couldn't find one that was.
That-
But
that's a
You need
disappointment.
to start one.
no,
That
I'm
could
good.
be
Man.
our
I'm too old.
Tales from the Crypt themed metal band.
I guess we'll probably be better than Haddonfield after we discuss that. So
Okay. This episode premiered on June 19th, 1991. So the three episodes came out, the first three episodes came out all together on the same night, and this came out just a couple days later, as has been the tradition the last couple seasons. Jody, hit us with a plot synopsis.
All right. So we start off with the Crypt Keeper, just the best in a costume. Anytime the Crypt Keeper's in a costume, I say this every week because he's in a costume a lot now. It's just the best. He's dressed as a doctor who is smelling a corpse, just to start it off on a wholesome note. And then we get this kind of interesting black and white beginning of two doctors. One, Martin, who is the smart doctor who has come to help his mulleted brother, Carl, look at some corpses and find out some information about them. And he look at a bunch of gross looking corpses that are actually pretty cool effects and really nice mutilated bodies. And then they go over to a attractive, fresh female corpse laying there naked. And it looks like she may have been strangled. So Carl, the mulleted doctor, starts making inappropriate comments about how hot she is and starts kind of feeling up the corpse. And then a boom mic shows up at the top. Rewatch it. It's real obvious.
Oh, really? I didn't even catch that.
It just pops right in at the top as he's filling up this corpse. And then he touches her and he says that the skin responded to his touch. And so his smart brother, Martin, goes over and he's kind of freaking out and he goes to check. And about that time, the body jumps up and screams. And some of the other corpses jump up and scream. It's all a practical joke. The sexy corpses. Carl's girlfriend, the other corpse is a friend of theirs in costume. But the shock of this entire prank is too much for Martin, and he has a heart attack. So we jump ahead in time and in color now. The episode picks back up in normal Technicolor for us. And Carl is a successful surgeon. And Martin is just a research assistant working under him now. Martin was the smart one, but now he's working under Carl. Martin just turned down a teaching position that Carl set up because Carl's tired of paying for his research. And Martin just kind of blowing the whole thing off. He pours them both some scotch. And then Martin mentions a trip that he took to Haiti. And he turns to this big sci-fi looking machine with brains showing and a lot of flashy lights and a little compartment opens up and all this voodoo stuff comes out of it. And Martin says he's been researching bringing the dead back to life and that he had seen it happen in Haiti while he was there. He thinks that the brain stays viable for a period of time after death. And Carl says, this is ridiculous. This is the research I've been funding. You're doing voodoo. And he starts to walk off, but then collapses. He has been poisoned by Martin. Martin said that all those years ago when Carl caused his heart attack, it ruined his career. He's not able to be a surgeon anymore, and this is his revenge. One of his hands got paralyzed from the heart attack, and so it ruined everything. And now Carl's dying from this poison, and Martin injects him with some green glowy liquid, the reagent from Reanimator, you might say. And even though Carl is dead clinically, and they even do ECG to make sure he is dead. He is flatlining, but we can hear his thoughts. Carl is still alive inside his brain. The brain is not dead, even though the body is. Martin says that he can still see, hear, and feel things, even though he cannot respond in any way. And then he says the sense of touch will be the first thing to go. And that's good because organ donation is going to be really unpleasant if he's still alive for it. So Martin takes Carl, rolls him to the hospital with a sheet over him. A man with dreadlocks and a Jamaican accent named Mitch pulls back the sheet, and they are back at the medical school basement where that original prank happened. They take Carl to the meat locker and start working on him. They cut him with a knife, and Carl says in his head, he says he can't feel it. It doesn't hurt. And they take and hang his body from a hook while Carl is just inside his head, begging them not to. Martin says he see him tomorrow and leaves him. Mitch comes back in. Well, Carl, then on that hook where he's hanging, Carl falls down and hits the floor. Mitch comes back in smoking weed. He blows smoke in Carl's face. And I noticed Carl's eyelid was twitching there. There's a few little technical things going on for a dead body. His eyelid is twitching in the scene. But anyway, he puts Carl on the embalming table to prepare the body. Carl sees Mitch cutting him, but he can't feel anything. They insert the tubes to drain all the blood. He sees all his own blood flowing out. And then Martin comes back in and starts talking to him. Martin says, I did take that teaching position. And then all the students come into the room. He's about to demonstrate on Carl's dead body. And Carl screams out in his head, my body's dead, but my brain, it's alive. It's a class on cranial anatomy. So at this point, Martin's going to cut into his head to show the anatomy of the brain. And that's when Carl will officially die, because once his brain is removed, he won't have anything keeping him together. And then Carl's finger starts twitching, though. And Carl starts thinking he can feel some things. And Martin pulls out a bone saw, starts slicing at the head. He pulls the scalp off, and Carl sees his scalp in front of him. And then he rips in and pulls the brain out. And about that time, Carl sits up screaming, but he's untouched. His head is fine. It's all been a prank. Everyone's laughing. It was fake. The scalp was fake. The brain was fake. When he was hanging in the meat locker, there was in this rig that they had put together for him. He really couldn't feel it. And this was all the research that Martin had been doing the whole time. Carl really did die. He really did have a heart attack. But the reanimator reagent stuff that Martin injected with kept him in a state of his brain being alive, even though his body had temporarily died. And it had only been 3 hours. Time had passed funny in this time. The students are all just his research assistants. Mitch is not Jamaican. He takes off his dreadlocks. Everything's all been a big prank. But then Carl has another heart attack, and he goes into cardiac arrest on the table. Martin gets his stuff ready to inject him again as the screen fades to white. And then we see through Carl's eyes again. He's laying on the embalming table. This time he really is dead. This is no longer a prank. This is no longer anything that Martin's doing. There's two embalmers there, and they say, it's a tragedy. He accidentally killed his brother. And we hear from Carl as this autopsy begins that one thing Martin was wrong about. His brain is still alive, but the sense of touch isn't the first thing to go. It's the last. And as he begins being embalmed, he can feel everything. And that's the end.
Thank you, Jody. Mondo, why don't you start us off? What do you think of this episode?
I really like this episode. I kind of wish, though, the ending would have just ended at the prank. I just thought that was so perfect. I thought it was kind of a cool, April Fool's Day ending. Spoilers if you guys haven't seen that movie that came out 35 years ago or 36 years ago. You haven't seen it? Oh, shit.
Films at first sight.
Well, I didn't give too much out, but it's a really cool film from the 80s. But I think that I wish it kind of would have ended there. But I did enjoy them. I really enjoyed this episode overall. I just like the idea when they kind of throw those weird little pranks in and two brothers pranking each other, obviously to some extremes. I don't think I'd ever prank a relative to that extreme. There was some weird stuff in it. Beau Bridges' character, when he's going to kind of caress the dead body at the beginning, I'm like, well, that's just not okay. Like, they reveal it's a big joke, but nobody has any questions as to why he was so into touching his dead body. Like,
Now, real quick, you've got him mixed up. Beau Bridges is the doctor who gets pranked at the beginning.
but didn't he go to touch that dead body after his brother convinced him to?
Oh,
He went to go check and see what was going on because
okay.
after his brother felt up the corpse, he was like, whoa. It responded to me when I touched it. And
Okay.
so then the good doctor goes to check and see what happened.
This is why I should take notes like Jody does.
I take too many notes during these episodes.
Hey, it's been a long day, so my brain's not working all that great right now. But yeah, overall, I think it was a class. I think it had that classic Tales from the Crypt twist at the end. I thought all the performances were fantastic. I love when his assistant just drops a Jamaican accent.
Yeah,
and just goes straight, man. I love how they explained even how they did the hook, the fake hook and all that.
yeah.
I really enjoyed just all the pieces of the puzzle on this one. So this, in my opinion, is one of the upper tier Tales from the Crypt episodes.
Joe, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed this. I was surprised. I really have to thank you guys first and foremost, because without the show, I wouldn't have been going back to like these old HBO episodes. And first off, I didn't realize how nostalgic I would get for the opening HBO like diorama, like through the model set and all of that. And then you get to the actual episode. Danny Elfman's music's blaring, and who do I see with like this? Who's it? Joe Ferry from Stranger Things. Tony Goldwyn comes in with this fucking mullet. I hate this son of a bitch. He's named Carl in this, and the reason I hate him is because my mom when I was younger watched Ghosts together. Also named Carl.
Also son of a bitch.
He killed Patrick Swayze. How could you side with him forever? Like, I think he's also in Scandal. I see him on that. I'm like, Patrick Swayze ass killing motherfucker.
I love that you'll hold a grudge against someone for killing a fictional character, because I respect that kind of pettiness.
He just wants to make pots with his wife. Like, what's
he was the asshole executive in Belko Experiments.
Oh, yeah, he was.
But you know what his very first role was? He was in Friday the 13th, I think part 6, Jason Lives.
Oh,
yeah.
One of like the non sequitur deaths, I believe.
I mean, I have to ask you guys, mullets are making a comeback.
They are.
Are you guys pro or anti mullet?
Listen, I am from the sticks of the South. Okay. I don't need to see another mullet in my lifetime. And to see teenagers out there on TikTok being like, look at what I got going on. I just like, man, I've known guys who have had that for 20 years, and it's a mistake.
So I like my hair like I like my toilet paper. Run the toilet paper across the front, beards are good. Run the toilet paper across the back, mullets are bad.
Beautiful.
Man, I've never heard that before, and I'm totally stealing it. I love that.
I stole it off a meme.
When I was very young, again, I grew up in Virginia. I was into WCW wrestling back in the late 80s, early 90s. So we went to the bar. My grandpa took me to get a haircut, and I pretty much told the barber I wanted a mullet. And my grandpa said, "Yeah, don't fucking give him a mullet," and made them cut my hair to something else. And I was very upset as a kid. In hindsight, thank you, Grandpa, because for not letting me fucking ruin my elementary school years with the mullet.
He saved you probably some ass whippings.
I will say, as a young Southerner, my mom did encourage me to get one at one point, but it never happened. I had that terrible bowl cut instead. But I don't know if it's better or not. But it's not the mullet.
I thought Jody's gonna be like, "That's why I said fuck it. I'm just gonna make all my hair fall out."
that happened much later.
I'm getting
not as
there,
later as I would hope.
I'm getting there.
See, I had a rat tail, which I feel is just like a half-assed mullet. Like, you're not really willing to go there, but you're willing to kind of dip your toes into the pond of shitty hairstyles.
Oh, dude, I definitely had a rat tail too, because I was a big fan of the wrestler Sting, and he had a rat tail. So I couldn't get the mullet, but I think at least one haircut, my grandfather and I kind of met on middle ground. I got a rat tail.
All right. So Joe, go ahead.
So away from Tony Goldwyn being a piece of shit, episode was fun. I love the black and white flashback aspect to it. Both actors are giving it their all. Beau Bridges he's sweaty. He, like, the Bridges family and their line delivery is so fucking good. He knows exactly the type of role he's playing. His weird little hand, I'm gonna remember up there with Scary Movie 2, because like, what the hell is on there? Because Tony, or was it Carl's character, is essentially trapped in this. He has to do this narration, and that took me away from it a bit. A little bit of overkill, although I thought the actor himself crushed the delivery with as much oomph as he could.
Yeah, it's a little schlocky, but I think that's kind of the point.
Absolutely. It's
campy.
Exactly.
So no, really enjoyed it. I feel lucky. I feel like this may be one of the better episodes of the series overall, just from how they approached it. Jody alluded to the amazing, like, 1950s-esque sci-fi laboratory that they have for everything in this. I guess when I'm dead, let's drop the bad Jamaican accent, but absolutely, like, shotgun a joint into my dead ass face.
We're gonna record that. We're gonna save this clip and play this back at your eulogy, just in case anyone's very upset when we're doing that to the corpse.
We'll hotbox your casket.
Gonna be proof of unlife.
All right, Jody, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I know this is a really fun episode. It does lose just a little bit of something in that Tony Goldwyn doesn't get to do much through most of it after that initial scene. It's hard to live past that, because that first prank is so good, and the setup for it, and he's being creepy, and his brother's like, why are you being so creepy? Like, I can't even deal with how gross you're being right now. And then you find out why it's all been happening, why it's all been set up. It's great. The rest of the episode is really good too. It's hard to have only a couple of characters actually doing stuff on screen while the other one is just yelling in his head. I think that's the only place it misses a little bit for me. Is I like the interaction, and but overall though, it really is a great episode. Like, it's we've had a lot of good ones in a row lately, and I feel like maybe season 3 is Tales from the Crypt really hitting its stride. They know what they're doing now, but it's not quite as good as the ones we've had leading up to it, but it's still a really good episode. It's still top tier for sure.
I'll jump in. This definitely, I don't think is as good as the last two. It's way better than the very first episode this season, the Love Potion one. I think it just goes too quickly. Like, I think there's just too much happening for a half-hour episode. I would love to see this like as an hour long, because the opening bit is great. It's really, really good, really strong, really shocking. And then it kind of resets, but the reset just happens so quickly and just moves so far ahead. Like, I didn't realize that they're brothers until like partway through the episode. I forgot what point. I'm like, wait, they're brothers? Like, I feel like that needs to have been more established, or there's something narratively I think they're just trying to get through too much, and maybe cut out the Jamaican guy part and just kind of give that transition a little more or something like that. But this is much more of an experience episode, because like the idea of being that guy's head, where like kind of like a sleep paralysis, where you're aware of what's happening, but you have no control over what's happening to you. It's kind of a terrifying idea. It's something I've never experienced, but I've watched the documentary and other things, and actually I know a guy who played one of the demons or whatever, the dark people in that. It's a good documentary. What's it called?
The Nightmare.
The
The
Nightmare, yeah.
Nightmare.
So it kind of reminded me of that. Just the idea is kind of terrifying. So like, even though, yeah, it's really campy in how they do it with voodoo stuff and the dialogue, the concept of it, well, it did kind of get to me. I watched it like kind of late last night, so I was like kind of sleepy as it was.
It's funny that as a guy who has experienced some pretty crazy sleep paralysis, the sleep paralysis thing didn't actually hit me. Like I didn't think much about it because I think with sleep paralysis, it's such a weird, like hallucinatory fever dream that
Mhm.
this was so realistic that I kind of didn't put those two together. But I could definitely see that connection though once you mentioned it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I've only experienced it one time in my life, and I remember it being just it was trippy as much as anything, because there was a part of my brain that was like, wait, I know what's going on, but I couldn't quite shake it at the same time.
yeah, the closest I've had where I've had dreams I thought were real while I was in them, like completely thought this is life, and like something really bad happened, and I totally had like a freak out, like, oh fuck, this is life, like life things were happening, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, so relieved that wasn't real.
See, I'm unfortunate. I had a actual like medically induced moment that
Oh,
was
wow.
similar to this, of a botched surgery where the anesthesia didn't actually take.
Oh,
Holy shit.
Well, that's terrifying.
That's
was-
that's
Yeah.
legit like
Horrifying.
Yeah.
that's legit like I can't even call it unrealistic fear. That's actually a huge fear of mine about
Mhm.
surgery, about going under, is remembering it.
It was not necessarily like, I still remember it to this day, but the anesthesia wasn't enough, and they started cutting me open. I started screaming on the table,
oh
and
god.
the last thing I remember, like, you're looking up and all you see is like that bright fucking light. And
Yeah.
I just see a hand with a mask coming as like fast as it can over my face.
Oh,
And then I
God.
woke up after that.
And that's still terrifying though, dude.
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine
yeah.
that.
So there's my nightmare for tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Like I've had some terrifying sleep paralysis experiences, but I think though, like at the end of the day, I write it off as sleep paralysis. I know what's going on. Whereas what you
You know,
experience
you're
is
gonna
a
see-
different level. That's crazy, man.
So yeah, the idea of that kind of thing happening, I thought was really intriguing. The execution, I didn't think it was the best in this episode. I did like the cast. So just to run it down, this is actually directed by Stephen Hopkins, who did Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Predator 2, I think it was 98 version of Lost in Space. He's done a lot of TV lately, House of Lies, The Fugitive. Beau Bridges has like huge IMDb. He comes from a big acting family, brother Jeff Bridges. What's funny to me is that he was in The Wizard, one of my favorite movies as a kid, and actually the next episode is directed by the guy who directed The Wizard, so he missed it by one
cool.
episode.
The Fred Savage wizard.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Power glove.
He was also, yeah, it's so rad.
Well,
It's so
people don't
bad.
realize-
Crappiest accessory that everyone wanted.
We'll talk about The Wizard next week, trust me.
I was like, that was also the introduction and the first ever
Mhm.
preview of Super Mario Brothers 3,
Yes.
which was a big deal.
Nice.
Yeah. He was also in the Chuck Norris vehicle Psychics. And he was also really in a ton of different Stargate TV series, which that was interesting. But he has a very, very long resume.
Yeah,
Tony-
I mainly remember him from My Name Is Earl, because I really loved that
Yeah.
series back in the day, and he was Earl's dad.
Yeah.
The
Stephen
Fabulous Baker's Boys.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Tony Goodwin, two things we didn't talk about. He was the voice of Tarzan in the Disney animated movie, like in 99. He was also in the Last House on the Left remake.
Oh,
He's the guy who shows the other guy in the microwave.
Oh, okay.
He comes off as that kind of sleazy. If he's not sleazy outright, he is like corporate sleazy.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Let's just say
Oh,
that.
But you mentioned he was rocking that sleazy suspenders with the blue striped
Yeah,
shirt, and then
yeah.
yeah. Somehow he'd have been less sleazy if he kept the mullet.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
That
The
even
mullet
kind
made
of
you more
yeah.
personable.
yeah.
he became
then-
corporate sleazy after that.
Yeah.
And then the got the assistant who pretended to be Jamaican for reasons. Mitch, he was actually in Creepshow 2. He was, I think, the hitchhiker, and he was in another childhood favorite of mine, Troop Beverly Hills. And he was
Yes.
There you
Okay.
go.
I love
Okay.
that.
He was
Great
also
movie.
in Tales from the Hood.
Yep.
So he's
Great
all about
movie.
those anthologies. Yeah. But yeah, overall, this wasn't my favorite. It's definitely not bad, but I definitely there's something narratively like, and they need like another 5-10 minutes in this.
Yeah,
Everything they were trying to shove in here.
I had the exact same thought that you had, that I think maybe it was just trying to do just a little too much in the time that it had. Like if it just had a little more room to breathe, I think it could have really achieved it a little bit better. But I mean, again, I feel like it's a really good episode overall. I need 5 more minutes, just enough to kind of stretch it out a little bit.
I'm going to compare it to a really weird movie that doesn't fit in with this at all. I'm going to compare this episode with the movie The Beyond by Lucio Fulci, because there's actually a scene in the middle where they're hooking up brain monitors to corpses and showing they're actually getting a brain activity, and just that whole in the Beyond's a whole scene where it's just all the corpses lying on a table, and the intro reminded me exactly that scene out of the Beyond.
Yeah, like
So
I said, that opening scene is by far the best.
Yeah. So I think one thing that didn't quite work for me, did you all believe that Carl was actually dead through all of it? I was expecting some kind of twist the entire time. I think maybe that's what led me to like, it felt like maybe they were faking it, like because the prank at the beginning set up pranking.
Well, can I ask you a question? Were you thinking that there was a twist at the end because it's Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah,
or because where the
100%,
narrative?
but-
Okay.
Yeah, no, every time I watch Tales from the Crypt, I expect a
Yeah.
twist at the end. When I don't get a twist, that's the twist.
I actually wasn't expecting to be a twist at all. I thought it was going to be something where they're going to try to harvest. Because again, I really love when I rewatch some of these episodes I don't remember as a kid. I don't remember watching before, and they kind of catch me off guard. I'm like, oh, I don't remember this, but it's really good. And I thought they're going to actually play it pretty straight with the voodoo priest being they're going to harvest his organs for some reason. So I actually did not expect the twist that they gave me.
Yeah, I felt kind of stupid when they kind of did the twist. I was like, oh, of course it is. But I think, again, I watched this pretty kind of late last night, so like I think I wasn't completely aware or really wasn't thinking that deeply into it. Like I would if I watched it in the middle of the day.
But there were some kind of a couple inconsistencies. Like he's screaming in pain when they hang him on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was all a ploy, why would he be screaming, saying, "No, I can't take this. Please let me down." You know, something to that effect.
I think it was all psychological, maybe. Like
It could be. It could be. It could be. But I didn't quite get that, which is okay. I didn't lessen my enjoyment.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, when he says that touch is the last thing to go, he sees the blade coming towards him. So obviously, he hasn't lost any of his senses yet.
Maybe
How
I'll
do you
stay
know?
around.
Yeah. How do you know that's the last one?
Exactly,
Stan
Again, if you pull hard enough on these episodes, they're going to unravel to a degree. So we're kind of
Every single one of them does.
Yeah, and you should always pull
There's-
hard.
They're based on they're based on 8-page comic books. So I mean, like,
written by Weezer.
So Jody, speaking of the comic book, why don't you talk about that?
okay, so this is from Tales from the Crypt number 37 from August 1953, and I'm going to start mentioning the creators when we talk about these things because I feel like that's an important thing to mention. This one was written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein. Now, Bill Gaines is the big boss at EC Comics, who eventually would go on to found Mad Magazine. Al Feldstein was the editor of Mad Magazine. These are the big guys writing this story. Drawn by Jack Davis, one of the staples of EC Comics, Mad Magazine, all that. And it's titled Dead Right, by the way, if you're looking for this one. They changed it for the show because the season 2 opener, the one with Demi Moore, that was called Dead Right. And so they couldn't have 2 Dead Right. So they got to come up with Abra Cadaver all on their own.
So what was the name for that one?
That one was also Dead Right.
Oh, they had two
It's
things
a
Dead
comic
Right?
book. It's a comic book.
Okay.
You can name the same thing multiple times. No, kids are dumb. You're not paying attention.
Well, actually,
You just stole my dad advice.
Is your dad advice kids are dumb? Because
It's important advice to remember. But anyway, so in this comic, it's set in an entirely different time period. I'm guessing somewhere like early 20th century or maybe in the late 1800s. They're 2 old men, Carl and Joseph, and Carl is narrating this entire story. They're both friends since med school, and Joseph believes that the brain can live on after death in certain conditions, and the people would still be able to see, hear, and feel. So I want to read you a panel or two here, just to show you what EC was doing at this time. This is Joseph speaking his thoughts about continuing on after death. He says, think of the number of corpses you've seen whose eyes are still open, whose eyes were thoughtfully pressed closed with pennies or wads of cotton under the lids. Think of the horror of having your eyes forced shut and held shut when your eyes can still see. Think of the horror of listening to your blood being pumped from your body, of embalming fluid being forced in, the pain, the excruciating pain, and listening to your own funeral ceremony, of feeling the closeness of the coffin, the lid slamming shut, perhaps being nailed. Think of yourself being lowered into the grave, the thumping of earth being shoveled down on top of you, and then, only then, fading and actually dying. That is some good writing. Like, that's awesome.
That sounds like it could have been an Undertaker promo from WWF. and
Anyway.
that is by no means a knock on it. That's cool.
Yeah. So these two men are having this conversation. Carl's getting tired of his friend's morbid thoughts about staying alive after death. And he gets ready to leave. And Joseph says, no, let's have a drink. And after Carl has his drink, Joseph reveals that he's bankrupt and he's poisoned Carl and he's going to take his money. And so Carl falls dead, but he's still able to feel, hear, and see. So they call the funeral home, and the funeral director comes and takes him, put him in a coffin. He goes through the embalming process, all the while narrating it. So he's seeing and feeling all this. They bury him while he keeps narrating. And then after they bury him, the coffin's opened. It was an anesthetic. Joseph is testing out a new anesthetic. He's tricking his friend. It's all a big joke. The whole thing was fake. They never buried him. They faked the coffin, and they're like, okay, he should be waking up any minute now. He should be waking up any minute now. Oh, why isn't he awake yet? Oh, shit. And they find out that he actually had died at the very beginning of the whole thing of a heart attack right after the anesthetic hit. And he actually has been dead the whole time. And Joseph's theories about the brain staying alive actually are proven true by him being able to narrate this entire thing. And their prank was actually him being dead through the entire comic. So yeah, it's the same general concept, but it kind of takes a cool twist there of the they never meant to kill him in any way whatsoever, but they accidentally did in the process. I do think for both of these people, both in the comic book and in the show, maybe don't induce fake death in people. Yeah. It probably is risky. Like
pranks like, I replaced your salt with sugar, and now you have to eat these eggs with sugar on them. It's not, I injected the serum that'll give you temporary paralysis for 24 hours.
Well, in the show, he literally says, like, it did really cause a heart attack, and it did really kill you for a while, but don't worry about it. Like, it was all just for a joke. I don't want friends that joke like that. That's a little too intense for me. Like, guys, I'm gonna find a new friend group.
You're angry now. We'll be laughing about it in 6 months. It's totally
fine. This will be hilarious if you survive.
I kind of feel like Mono Joe's giving me a heart attack at least like once or twice a week.
I don't try to. It's not my fault. You're thin skinned.
But yeah, let me say that we talk about the rain, but also the artwork in this comic is really good.
Jack Davis is one of the best, and he is throughout this. You can spot his stuff when you're looking at any of the old DC comics. He's so good. That last panel where they realize that they've accidentally killed him, and their eyes are bugged out, and there's sweat pouring out. It's so good. It's such a good art.
I want that on my wall. Like all those panels were really good. Okay, do we have any final thoughts?
Just remember one more thing. Alan Silvestri does the score on this. Yeah. I just love the score on this and how it bounces back and forth. And Alan Silvestri, I think we've talked about him before, did the Back to the Future films, did Predator 2, did the Grumpy Old Men series. He has a very, very diverse background. Summer Rental, just a bunch of fun stuff that he's done. So the music in this is pretty fantastic, and I really liked his work on it.
And The initial prank you guys had mentioned, and I absolutely agree that opening, black and white flashback opening, is the strongest part of the episode. The mask that the one guy is wearing gave me such Curtains vibes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was so creepy.
Oh, yeah. And we didn't bring that up, but the effects in the movie or in the episode are really great.
Mhm.
Like just the mask work and the set pieces were fantastic.
Oh,
So,
the first corpse that they're looking at, that's like open up at the chest and is all rotty. Like that's really cool looking.
Though this is one of those things that, like, if this was just a regular prank with a bunch of med school students, it's a really elaborate makeup mask job for them to pull off. Like, yeah.
And the
It's
most
just one of those things.
unbelievable part of it was Carl having a girlfriend that would go along
Mhm.
with being like, I'm just gonna lie there naked, touch my titty, and like do what you have to do to trick your brother as he watches all of this go down.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let your brother, who I've never met before,
Yeah, she's
because I
never
love
met
that
me.
after that scene, she's like, "Hi, good to meet you."
Because these guys seem pretty close. They seem to hang out quite a bit. And he's never met her girlfriend who's willing to do all that.
Well, I imagine the conversation going with her being apprehensive and then her being like, but fuck, this is a really good prank. Like, how do you say no to that prank? And for the record, if any of you guys ever get this elaborate on a prank and you need me to lay there's a naked corpse, I'm in, because that is fantastic.
You just want a chance to show off your calves.
It was my thighs, and my calves are pretty good. My thighs are really
Oh,
good.
your thighs.
I almost would have liked to see her come up where like you're at his desk and you see her photo and it's like their wedding day and it shows like holy shit, they made it past this point of like almost killing his brother.
Oh shit, yeah, it'd been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that this relationship survived this prank afterwards. Like, maybe this is too much. Maybe this is not the right person for me with
Hey.
the murder pranks.
There were a couple of young wacky kids, so who knows?
Hey,
It
I
was just-
watched Raw, med school, vet school, all that stuff. It's wild, apparently.
Maybe it was her dream to date a doctor. And then he graduated.
I don't know.
That's a Seinfeld
Maybe.
callback. That's it.
Okay. I was
I will
never
say the effects are done. We've mentioned this guy before, Thomas Bellissimo. He's done some other tales from every time we're like, man, the effects in this episode are really good. I look it up. This dude's name pops up. So yeah, every time you see cool effects in Tales from the Crypt, so far he's been one of the big guys.
Nice.
Do you know if he's done anything outside of Tales from the Crypt then?
Oh, he did The Mask. He did What Lies Beneath, Saw,
Yeah, I see that.
Dust Till Dawn. Like this dude's all over the place.
Oh, Alan
Okay.
Silvestri actually did the music for What Lies Beneath, which is a really that was actually kind of a good, that was kind of a freaky movie too.
That is a good movie.
Yeah.
The Mask was one of my like childhood favorites.
Oh, yeah, I love The Mask.
And yeah, you tell me he did the effects for The Mask. You've got me.
All right, let's move on to our rankings. Joe, out of 5, you can do half points. What do you give this episode?
I'm gonna give this episode a 4.
Okay. Judy.
Yeah, I'm with Joe on this one. This is a 4 for me. Very good. Maybe not top tier, but still really good.
Mondo.
So I'm gonna go 4.5 because
Ooh.
this was the happiest thing that happened. The second happiest thing that happened to me today after some major disappointments. So since it was the second happiest thing that happened to me today, and one thing we didn't bring up is we talk a lot about how the actors have to understand what they're getting into, and
Mhm.
everyone knew what they were getting into.
100%.
So for being the second best thing that happened to me today, I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
I'm gonna be a little bit downer, go 3.5.
Of course you are, Jason. You always go below us.
I know.
What's a half point? Seriously.
You can't give it a 4, Jason.
Nope.
No, I love that type of stuff where it's like, yeah, go either like a half up or down. Like that's arguable material.
Yeah.
Like you can't be like, all right, you're just doing this just for the numbers. It
No,
makes sense.
no, yeah, I came up with that number before we started recording.
No, I totally respect that.
Yeah, my numbers are full gut reactions. I don't even know. I can't justify any of them.
Same here.
I forgot I had to give a number until like 10 seconds before you were like, all right, what's the ranking?
All right. Well, let's move on to our song of the day. Mondo, take it away.
Ooh, I thought I had this nailed, and then about 10 seconds before we started, I decided, no, wait, there's a better song for this. So there's a little band that came out of Florida in the 90s called Cannibal Corpse. One of the most probably one of the most famous death metal bands of all time, because if you guys remember in Ace Ventura, they're the band playing at the club that Ace goes to, and they're playing the song Hammer Smash Face off Tomb of the Mutilated. But I digress. But on 1994's record, The Bleeding, which in my opinion is probably the best album they did, it's also the last album they did with their original vocalist, Chris Barnes, before they dumped his sorry ass and got George Corpse Grinder Fisher to take his place when they did the album Vile in 96.
A guy with a name like that, how can you not?
So the best part is, like, I will challenge anyone listening to this to go onto YouTube and Google George Corpse Grinder Fisher, because you'll find videos of him taking you through Target to show you how to properly shop for clearance at Target. His other favorite thing to do is he loves carnival games. So whenever he's on tour and he can go play like claw machines, he'll win a bunch of stuffed animals from that and from carnival games, and then he goes and donates them to children's hospitals. So again, it's one of those things where it's like all of us guys into these metal genres, we're just putting on a front. It's just we're trying to push out our macho-ness. Meanwhile, we're just nice people inside, hopefully. But in 1994, Cannibal Corpse released their best record, in my opinion, called The Bleeding. And the song off this record we are going to do is perfect for this album or this episode. It's called Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead.
Nice.
By Cannibal Corpse off the record The Bleeding. And a couple other things about this. It was produced by Scott Burns, recorded in Morrisound Studios in Florida, which in the early 90s, like every American death metal record went through Morrisound and went through Scott Burns. Morrisound, like Death, all their records came out of Morrisound. Morbid Angel, their first 4 albums came out of Morrisound. And Brooke Hogan, daughter of Hulk Hogan, she did a record through Morrisound. And I think they also did Seven Mary 3. And it's kind of funny how Morrisound Studios has this whole legacy of putting out some of the most like early prominent death metal records that came out that inspired all these other bands, but they also did these kind of like weird one-offs and did a great job. So
you gotta keep the lights on.
Yeah, but what's funny is those are like one-offs they did, and whereas they're predominantly just a metal studio, but it's just kind of cool in hindsight. But if you guys want to know who Cannibal Corpse is, just buy the record The Bleeding, and then you can buy Vile from 96. And they're still together today putting out albums. And again, like they got a lot of flack early on because of obviously Typical and what was it, PMRC and all that, but it's really just a bunch of guys that like horror movies and trying to be edgy and put out some pretty seminal and influential death metal records.
When you start talking about a band coming out of Florida in the 90s, I was like, oh no, he's not going with Limp Bizkit, is he?
Oh, they're from Florida too.
I'm sorry, from Tampa or something like that. No, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. That's about right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was like, that Niners loss didn't do too much damage, did it?
They have a fucking a disappointing football team and disappointing band, so it's cool.
There you go. All right, Jody, give us some trivia.
I gotta say this again first, because one of my favorite things when Mondo starts his song of the day is when he's like, "Hey, I changed my mind at the last second. This is something off the top of my head," and then he knows every detail about everything. It blows my mind. It's amazing. All right, so trivia, which I did not know off the top of my head. Jason actually sent me this one. We got Beau Bridges trivia today. Beau Bridges was born just 2 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
And because of the attack, the power was out, and he was born by candlelight during a power blackout. So we got Beau Bridges au naturel at his birth by candlelight.
Sounds like the most romantic way to be born.
Sure.
Do you know what else happened in June 1991?
What?
Oh, well, not one else. That was kind of a weird segue. But Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh,
June 1991 was the debut of Sonic the Hedgehog.
oh man, you just hit my nostalgia button.
And you want to know what?
Right there.
The movie with Jim Carrey, pretty good.
Yeah,
I
not
like
bad
it.
at all.
I saw in the theater with my kids.
I like-
After the redesign,
Yeah, after the redesign. Thank God.
I like to think of it as like, all right, I'm going to show this to my kids. And then when they get older, we're going to watch Midnight Run together and they'll get it.
I love it.
That's awesome. All right. And then Mondo today, I usually run our Instagram account. So if someone's posting something, it's usually me, but Mondo slipped in there and made a post that freaked me out because I didn't know why we were getting responses. But he put out a call for any questions to get some interaction going.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Usually when I slip in, people do notice. So, but we had some good questions from some of our some listeners. So if you guys have any questions for us for dad advice or just anything in general, you can hit us up on our Instagram. You can email us at dadsfromthecrypt@gmail.com or any of our social medias. We'll be happy to talk to you guys. So from Small and Failing, which is our friend.
It's Small Town Failing.
Sorry, the Instagram account is called Small and Failing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Our friend Joe, who runs a podcast. Thank you, Jason, for not letting me finish. Runs a podcast called Small Town Failing, which is really cool. He gets guests on and they review Hallmark movies of all things. He asked a question saying, "What's the most disgusting thing your kids have ever done to you?" And I'll start with you, Jody, because Jody put his hand up.
I had an instant one, and I will not say which of my kids this was because I don't want to put this out there on the internet for him or her. Sure, I think I already. There's multiples. They can hide behind the numbers, but I do remember changing a diaper early on. And in the process of changing the diaper, you hold the feet, you lift the butt to get the diaper up. And about that moment, as the butt was aimed at the sky, we have what me and my wife refer to as the poop fountain, where it just liquid just exploded out of this child and hit the wall in a arc that sprayed and splattered all over the house. It was momentous occasion. So I didn't even have to think. That's the one. That's the grossest thing a child has ever done in my presence.
Jason, give it to us.
I like to say that they did to me, but that happened. That has happened. So I remember one night, our kids are twins, and we had them in the crib together for the first little bit, and when the crib was new in our bedroom, and one night one of them was crying, so I went to go pick him up, and I put my hands into the crib to pick him up, and I went straight into vomit. And they had gone this. That was the infamous stomach bug that hit each person in my family like within like 24 hours. So about every 4 hours, another person in the house would just get very ill, and then they got over it. But yeah, when you're not expecting it, it's quite a shock.
All right, Joe, you're up.
So my story is similar to Jody's, but is my fault. I was changing my son, and we have his changing table right up against the arch of our stairway. And Laura is standing on the stairs overlooking me to make sure I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing to make sure he's clean. And this kid must have had a full clip, because I pushed down on the wrong part, and within like a quarter of a second, I'm covered nose to knees in shit. And like you have that momentary of like, huh, and I'm now trying not to vomit on my child who's like right in front of me. Laura almost fell down the steps from laughing. It's an epic moment in our house.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything from when she was a baby, But it was that time she wanted me to take her to go see the director's cut of Midsummer, and we had to sit through that sex scene together because that's pretty fucking awkward and disgusting, I must say. But I will tell one funny child story, and it was when we were teaching her to she had just gotten potty trained, and to her credit, she did that shit right away. She's like, "Yeah, I'm into this. We're done with diapers." And I remember I was sleeping and I woke up to her just poking me. And I'm like, "Hey man, what's up?" Because I was really out of it. And she has this upside down U on her face. She's frowning so big. And that freaked me out. I'm like, "Oh my God, honey, what's the matter?" She goes, "I went potty all by myself." I'll say, "That's awesome." She goes, "I can't put my pants back on." And she was just crying and bawling her eyes out. So I helped her put her pants back on and got her to bed. And that's why kids are awesome. I have to say, luckily, I was never covered in vomit. I was never covered in shit. And that's why I just stopped at one, because I figured I like didn't have any of these awesome like Hallmark experience that you guys did. So I was cool with just one.
And my daughter has been, she like half sleepwalks lately, but because she has to go potty, but she can't figure out where the bathroom is. So we walked, like, we were in the kitchen the other night, and she walked in the kitchen, pulls out a drawer, and starts to squat on it.
Your daughter's like a 40-year-old alcoholic. I love it.
Or like if we're sitting on the couch, she'll go try this on the couch next to us. And yeah, we're like, "No, stop. Stop."
Get died. Like I just God, I have this vision of you and your wife too fucking stoned out of your minds to even do anything about it. Be like, "Fuck it, just pee there at this point." We'll figure it out in the morning. Your daughter's a 40-year-old alcoholic or like a 2-year-old cat. One of the two. It's awesome, man.
Oh man. Everyone tells you, like, before you have kids and you hear stories like this, you're like, it'll be different when you have your own kids. Nah, it's still gross. It's real nasty.
I still remember very vividly. I was at my best friend Phil's house, and Phil's we've known each other for 32 years, 31 years, something like that. And I was at his house. We're watching UFC, and his kids are like, "Uncle Mondo, come read me a bedtime story." I'm like, "All right, cool. I got this." So I got his daughter sitting with me and his son sitting on the other leg. You listeners can't see this, but I'm making motions to where they're sitting. And they're chilling with me, and I'm reading a bedtime story, and they're into it, having the best time. I finish the bedtime story, and they start fighting. And but while I'm reading the bedtime story, I'm thinking like, "Oh shit, I could do this again. Like maybe I do want another baby." Then they started fighting. I was like, "Oh yes, no, fuck this. This is your guys' problem, not mine." I'm gonna go get another beer.
All right, Mondo, what's our next question?
Next question comes from our friend Sierra Bonita 81, who is our good friend Dr. Natalie, who was on our Demon Night podcast. She said, "Why are you guys so awesome?" Jason, I'll start with you.
Well, if you look at the sum of awe, I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for listening.
Tomorrow when I'm at work and I'm having a rough day, I'm going to latch on to that compliment. It's going to make me feel good. So I appreciate it. And then the last question is, and this is actually a trivia question that we've been asked by Film Staten Island. It is, who has been in the Scream franchise and they capitalize the word "and" to emphasize "and" Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah, I saw this earlier and I thought about it. I did some checking. I've come up with one.
Well, that's the answer then, Jason.
Yeah,
what is
what
it?
do you got?
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
She was in Scream 2 and the Demon Knights movie.
There we go.
I was wondering if Henry Winkler was in a Tales from the Crypt. This seems like the kind of thing he would do. Apparently not. I looked up like Laurie Metcalf. And that's unless there's like maybe a stunt person in the background. Other than that, I could not find anything else.
I think Jada counts. Jada definitely counts.
We'll roll with that. Film Staten Island. If you have a different answer, please let us know. We'd love to hear that out. And that's all we have for now.
All right. Thank you, Mondo. All right, and that leads us to our very last segment, our dad advice. Joe, you are a father and you're here, so hit us up.
So right now I'm going through something with my son, and I love music as a kid. I played multiple instruments as I was growing up, and then had bands and actually professionally made money off music for a little bit, which was
Oh, wow.
awesome.
What were you playing that you made?
Keyboards, piano, and then I also DJ'd and did production.
That's awesome, man. It's awesome. I know that.
I have my son right now in piano lessons, and my dad advice is, like this whole, I grew up every day or every other day, an hour of practice, and such a rigid schedule around needing to do an instrument along these certain lines. If you're a parent, if you're a dad, and you're trying to get your kids into music and instrumentation at an early age, just craft it in love of the music. Find their interests and hone them. Give it, like, if you can get them into lessons, fantastic. But once the lesson's done, let them just kind of play around, make weird sounds, do what they want to do in order to actually love the instrument and the sound coming out. The rest will fall into place.
Yeah. How old is your son?
My son is 7.
Okay, same as mine.
No, I love that. And I also say, don't force them also to do it if they don't want to do it, because
100%.
exactly, because you'll just build a resentment there to where, maybe they're a great piano player when they're 17, but they never want to touch a piano in their life because of what they went through. But no, man, I love that. Like, cultivate and just kind of, encourage whatever they want to do. And especially with music, man, because like, I think music and playing music is such not just an awesome skill to have. It's an awesome just release and a great mental stimulant. I don't know what word I'm looking for here. It's been a long day, but I think playing music is an important thing. And it's I think anyone that even tries it, I think that they'll grow up to love it if they just try it and aren't kind of forced to do it. And like you said, just kind of, how you say, you help them like sow the seeds of their love of whatever they're doing.
Yeah. And that's all you need to do. Back them up and all of that.
Yeah, no, I was a kid who took piano lessons for years, probably 3 or 4 years. I can't play anything because I'd never wanted to practice. It was mainly just practicing the songs that we were supposed to learn. And I would get these books, I'd go to like On Cue or FYE or something like that. And I'd find like, top hits or something like that. And I'd get a book and I'm like, okay, these are the songs I actually want to learn. These are the songs I want to play. And I'd take them to my piano teacher and it'd be like, let's go back to the lessons we're working on right now. And so I never really got a chance to play stuff that was exciting or fun for me. And so I can't play anything. I'm a cautionary tale on this is, we just did piano lessons and I never got anything out of it. Meanwhile, my brother can pick up, he's self-taught completely. He taught himself how to play guitar, and now he can play banjo and violin and literally any instrument. If you give it to him and say, hey, I'll see you in 48 hours, he'll play a song for you the next time you see him, because he's just one of these dudes who plays. Like, he picks up an instrument and he plays with it. It's fun. I don't know if anyone's as big a Bob's Burgers fan as I am, but I think
I am.
Just playing with the keyboard and having fun and making dog noises and barking and fart sounds. But, you learn how to play when you just make it fun again and have fun with it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
You make a great point in that, but I also think though, like, you have to also find the right instructor if you want to go that route. Sure. I'm a 100% not 100%. I'm a 95% self-taught guitar player. But then when I was about 10 years ago, I started taking lessons, and the guy was like, look, I need to kind of build you back up from the ground up, because a lot of fundamentals you never learned, but we're learning fundamentals. But then I also want you to tell me what your influences are, so I can also teach you how to play cool licks by these artists, because that's what's going to inspire you to want to come back to me and learn these fundamentals.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important piece too in any instructor, and saying, yeah, we're gonna learn fundamentals, but here's some fun shit we're gonna do too to keep you
It's gotta
inspired
be
and keep you
fun.
motivated. It really does.
It's got to be fun.
And that's like that's probably like, you know, your daughter, who's a pretty accomplished martial artist at this point. A lot of that is the same thing when it comes to martial arts. I bet they taught her a lot of stances and katas, but when she actually got to throw those kicks, that's what was fun.
Yeah.
So they kind of balance that really well.
Yeah, I mean,
A good instructor
this,
will.
You can apply this just about anything. You know, if you make it fun and you get to do the things that you want to, that you feel cool when you do them, like, you know, you play that lick and you're like, oh, dude, I am awesome right now.
Yeah, I'll play
the thing that sticks.
I'll play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and learn how to keep my you know, learn how to read music for 30 minutes of class if I get to play that cool Stevie Ray Vaughan lick at the end, right? It's really cool.
Yeah, when I first started playing guitar, I took lessons. I learned kind of fundamentals, but I learned like more riffs with just going to my friend's house, and that's where like I learned like most of the stuff I still remember and still do is stuff I learned fucking around with my friends. And then, you know, so I'm sure the techniques I learned with my instructor back in the day, you know, still apply. But what's actually really cool now is, again, with the internet, you can Google any song you want and just find the tab or, you know, whatever you want to read. How to play it, or, you know, there's tons of websites and, you know, online tutorials and things. And that's the kind of thing, if I was a teenager back in the day, I would have loved to have had that, to just look up whatever I wanted. That's really cool that kids can do now.
I mean, even you know, I do graphic design in my day job, and the most fun I have is when I'm like, I want to make something cool right now, and I start Googling and playing. You know, I do my job, I do my normal stuff, and that's work. But then when I get to really play, that's when I actually learn stuff that I can actually, then I take that work, the stuff that I learned playing, and I take it back and actually use it in the real stuff that I do. So it's cool. The more you can play with anything, the better you learn, I think.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. Like, and like I said, never force your kids into anything. Like, I really want my daughter to do jujitsu with me, because I want her to be able to kill an attacker if some bad shit happens. But I know if I force her to do it, she would just hate it and not want to go. So it's like, anything your kids have interest in, you do something you love. I think it's really cool to, you know, expose them to it, but then let them kind of find their own path. And then if they find a path that's different than yours, much like to Joe's suggestion, you just got to kind of feed that and fertilize it and help them, you know, figure out where they want to go with it and support them.
Nice. Okay. Well, that wraps up another episode. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you?
You can find me. I guess I am PS Trophy Hunter at Twitter.
Sounds dirty.
It really does. And then Films at First Sight, which is Films at First Sight on Twitter, and No Film Left Behind, which I forget off the top of my head what our Twitter handle is, but Google in No Film Left Behind at Twitter. We're semi-active with our first episode coming out.
We're still in the formation stage. We're
exactly.
playing.
Well, I'll link it. We'll link it in the episode whatever's live by the time this goes out.
Yeah,
I'm super looking forward to it, guys. I'm super excited for that.
Thank you. And the biggest thing is thank you guys for having me on. This has been a fucking blast.
Joe, thanks for it's late in Philadelphia. So thanks for hanging out with us.
This is my normal. You guys found a good guest that is a night owl. It works for me.
No, I appreciate you guys, because it's you know, it's 10 o'clock here on the West Coast. And I'm like, fuck, I'm ready for bed.
It's 1 a.m. here.
Okay.
Night's just getting started.
Oh Lord, you guys.
All right. Next week we will be reviewing Top Billing. We would really appreciate it if you would give us a rating and review on iTunes and a rating on Spotify. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. you may get it.